Hello, empowered principals. Welcome to day 2 of Flip the Fall Dip. So eager to be with you here today and to connect with you all and to support you. I've received some feedback online that has been amazing, and I really appreciate that. People have been eager to learn more and to hold these conversations. So I'm so happy that we can be coming together, gathering to hold this conversation, to have this discussion, to support one another, and to dig deeper in to what is happening below the surface in our schools. As you know, there are layers of emotions that are happening in our schools. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that. I want to take a moment to validate you and to let you know that you're seen, you're heard, you are felt. I remember being in the position, and I really want to honor that. And at the same time, while we're holding space for the heaviness and the stress and the fatigue and the disappointment and the discouragement and the frustration and all of the fear that's circling and swirling around in the institution of education, in the field of education, we can still yet, even with all of this, find our center, find a way to be grounded, and to ground ourselves in empowerment, personal empowerment. I was just speaking with my empowered principal collaborative group today. We meet on Wednesdays, and we were discussing like very meta, like what's the purpose of education? What is our vision? What is our mission? Do we need to redefine that? And we were talking about kids wanting to be in school, the value of school, what's in it for kids. And we can go very meta and have these big conversations and explore possibility and the potential of what schools could look like, what they could feel like, given the current state of our society, the current state of affairs in education. We can discuss things that can develop hope and energy and enthusiasm and excitement and conviction and determination to come in each day and do this work a little bit differently, to hold different kinds of conversations, to prioritize different things. And while that's also very exciting, it can be intimidating. It can feel a little scary to hold conversations such as these when it comes to great big shifts in the way we want to think, in the way we want to feel, and the way we want to approach school leadership, teaching, learning. There's a lot. And our body might like say, no, this is too scary. We have to back off. I just want things to be back in the safe space where it's comfortable. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. I acknowledge the fear. I acknowledge, and look, I have fears of my own. Speaking this out loud, standing on a platform called the Empowered Principal, coaching clients, coaching one-on-one, coaching district administrators, site administrators, aspiring administrators. I feel your fear, and I feel it too. I feel afraid to speak up. I feel afraid of trying to ensure that we're serving everyone and holding conversations that might, shake things up a little bit, that might cause some dissonance, that might make us have to slow down and reflect and maybe pause and contemplate and look at things from different perspectives. So this fall, we have a full school year ahead of us. There's so much potential. There's so much excitement. There's so much that we can do to impact. And again, as I said yesterday, it's not always about the actions that you take, the work that you do, the physical doing of the tasks. It's also about the who you're being, the identity of you. And the the real center of Flip the Fall Dip is going inward, is talking about the center of who we are, our identity as a leader, teachers' identities as teachers, students' identities as students. So when students are coming into school, they're coming in for school for the day. What are they thinking about themselves? What are they thinking about school? How are they feeling? You know, I was in elementary. A lot of the kids are excited to be there, excited to be with their teacher. There's a few kids that don't like it, but by the time you get to middle school and then on to high school, you have a lot of resistance because the student identity is not one that's in alignment with what we as the educator should believe their identity to be. So this comes up when we talk about the fall dip. So how students identify, how they feel. So you've got a student who's coming in, it's like, I don't need to be here. I don't want to be here. I don't like this. I'm not good at this. Their identity as a student, they don't feel like a good student. They don't feel competent as a student. They don't see the value in trying to putting forth that effort to being a good student. The content that we're offering them is maybe relevant to us, maybe not to them. Or if they do find some relevance in it, is this the ideal way for them to learn and to process and to kind of acquire that knowledge, acquire that skill set? And the same thing is happening with our teachers. I think there's just huge disconnects in identities. We're having identity quakes is what I call them. So we're going to talk about all this today. We're going to talk about what's coming up for all of us, why we're feeling the way we feel, and I'm going to provide some tools at the end of today's session for you to kind of try on tomorrow before we get together for our last day of the fall dip. Okay. So as we talked about yesterday, when I talk about the fall dip, what I'm talking about is the dip in energy, the dip in enthusiasm, the dip in engagement. And that happens after all of the excitement of the new year. So if you're watching this live or you're watching this in the replay, I want you to take a moment and contemplate the following questions. Okay. In what ways specifically, and one of the things I will always tell my clients, the specifics, the solutions are in the specifics. So you want to be as specific as you can when you're answering these and thinking about them. So in what ways is the fall dip presenting at your school? For some of you, it might be teachers are already calling in sick. Maybe you have a shortage of subs. Maybe, COVID's gone around at your school and a lot of kids are out sick. Maybe attendance is dropping. Maybe it's, so it might be like physically people are not as present and engaged, or it may be that everyone's there and no one's ever taking sick time off, right? Is it, people are at an emotional low and they're kind of crabby or they're short with each other. Kids are misbehaving, there's emotional outbursts. Or is it behavioral that you're seeing a dip? Is it just fatigue, like you're exhausted mentally from trying to figure out solutions to all of this? Another thing we talked about in EPC was the layers. So what our brain does as you're thinking about this tallies the hard things, right? So it's like, well, first this happened, and then that happened, and then that happened, and then that happened, and now one more thing. And so our brain's making a tally of all of the problems that have come up during the day. But what we're not doing, what our brain is not offering, is that, let's say you did have one of those days and it was one thing after the next. From the minute you walked in the door until the time school was, dismissed. And it felt like you were just, you you'd get one thing and then you would handle that, and then another thing would come up, and then another thing interrupted that thing, and then you didn't quite get that one because you had to triage this. Let's just say that happened. And I'm sure it did. I know that it does. Okay. So what our brain does is like, oh my gosh, that was a day. It was just one more thing, one more thing, one more thing. So we added all the things together. But what our brain didn't do is say, yeah, 8 things. Let's just say 8 things, one after every hour of this day today, something came in onto my plate, into my awareness, and I had to take action. What we don't do is, yes, 8 things happened. That is correct, brain. You are accurate in your counting. Good math. Good job on your math. However, how many of those things did you handle? Maybe you took care of the first thing and the second thing, but then the third thing got interrupted by the fourth thing. So you had to run to the fourth thing. And then you didn't get back to the third thing. So that's still hanging out there, but you got the fourth thing done and the fifth thing done. And then, the sixth thing got interrupted by the seventh thing. So the sixth thing didn't get done. And the seventh thing, you had to deal with that first. And then the eighth thing happened, but it happened right at the end of the day. And so now you can't get it done. What our brain will offer us is this and this and this, all 8 things. What a terrible day. One more day. I'm at capacity. 8 things happened today. Instead of saying 8 things happened today and I was able to tackle 5 of them. Number 3, 6, and 8, or whatever they were, right? Those are on my plate for tomorrow. But 5 of the 8, over half, I was able to knock out and handle. That way, it's like, yes, I did my job today. As things came up, I handled them, and then I handled them, and then I handled them to the best of my ability. And this one thing got interrupted by that, but I made a decision and I triaged it. I put this one on the back burner so I could deal with that. And then I got a couple more things done. And then this got interrupted. So I put that on the other back burner. And then I handled this. And then right at the end of the day, something else came in. So we're going to let that one marinate and we're going to deal with it tomorrow. And now I can take the 3 things that are left, in addition to what I had planned and didn't get to because it was a wipeout day. And now I can say, okay, these 3 things are coming along and these other things still need to get done. Let me reschedule, remap this out. And this is why when I talk about fatigue, we have to look at the different angles of fatigue, because our brain wants to create this. There's so much going on, and it creates a lot of mental fatigue. Like, I can't think about all 8 things at once. No, you can't. You can think about what's in front of you at the time. But what about these other things? Yes. And when you do that, it feels bigger. It feels worse. It's like your to-do list. When we leave it in our brain puts it on loop. It's like on repeat. So it's just playing over and over. So the list feels, if it's 10 things, it feels like 20 and 30 and 100 and 200 because it just keeps all day long. Oh, I got to do this. Oh, I got to do this. Versus taking the 10 things, actually prioritizing them, and then putting them on the calendar, assigning them a date, a time, and a duration so that we can say, yep, I've got 10 things. I prioritize them. This is what's going to happen. This is my goal. Now I know. And then we're saying, this is the problem with the dip. I have these things to get done, but the kids and the behaviors. And what we're butting up against is we're not accepting the reality. There's a dip in our connection with what's going on. And we're not scheduling half of our day for student interaction, student engagement, student behavior, conversations. If if that is the truth of your day, and I'm getting a little bit into our time and planning and balance mastery programs that I offer in the Empowered Principal programming, but one of the tips, one of the strategies that we use is that if you're consistently not getting to your schedule and you're frustrated day after day and it feels like there's so many behavior things, but there's no space on your calendar for them, our calendar is not in alignment with the reality of what's going on right now. And I know that feels like a bummer because what we want to do is we want to be able to knock our stuff out. We've got, administrative things, we have management things, we have planning things, we have observations. There are leadership things that need to get done. And what I'm hearing across the board is behaviors are off the chain. Behaviors are off the chain. So there's the the mental fatigue of like being frustrated that you're not getting to the things you need to get to. And the mind's like, come on, let's go. And then there's the emotional piece where some of the things you're dealing with students is very emotional, or dealing with staff, and it's intense. And nobody taught us how to regulate our bodies or how to articulate ourselves calmly and succinctly when we're faced with intense emotions, whether they're our intense emotions or other people's intense emotions. So I want you thinking about like, what is it about my job very specifically that feels like the dip? Am I just, I'm feeling bummed out because teachers are, they're in a funk. And so when they're in a funk, I'm in a funk. Is that what's happening? Or is it I'm in the funk and I'm going around and I'm like, meh, 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 as the administrator because I'm so busy, or I feel like I'm being fake if I'm not, if I'm trying to, be positive when I don't feel positive. So look at that specifically. What type of, fall dip is manifesting at your school? Is it, and same thing for your teachers and your staff. What's going on with students? What's going on with teachers and staff members? What's going on with yourself? Okay. Now, I'm sure that you could give me a longer list of examples that I could, and we've talked about them. But if you really tune into the fall dip, it comes down to those below the surface feelings. It's yes, the fatigue is on top. Disappointment is kind of in the middle. That's the hamburger of the sandwich there. It's like there's the bun, top bun is the fatigue. Everyone's tired and frustrated. I would say that's on the top two, but really below that, the emotions that we don't just outwardly say, like I'm really disappointed in how things are going. I'm feeling discouraged right now. We might say that to a close friend or a close colleague, but it's not something we would maybe admit to our boss or to a peer that you don't know as well. Right? We kind of mask that feeling. And the reason we do that is because it's more vulnerable. Everyone can say they're tired. It's very socially acceptable to say, oh, I'm so tired. These kids drive me crazy. They're, make me want to, run out of here and go home, take a nap. Yes, that's all, like we laugh about it and it's socially acceptable and it's comfortable to say, I'm just so tired. I'm worn out. I'm already exhausted. But it's another layer of vulnerability to say, yeah, I'm really disappointed. I thought this year was going to look different than it did. It also is another layer of ownership when we say we're disappointed or I'm discouraged. If we're like leaning into discouragement, it's like, I'm really discouraged. But a lot of times what we do is, oh, I'm just so tired. And we joke about the kids and it's, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, and I'm seeing the joke and they're funny. It's funny, and it also perpetuates like that we're going to stay on the surface. But what's below the surface, and I believe the honest way to really move our staff through the dip is to have a space and have the safety and the trust in our staff to be able to say, like, kind of disappointed about how things are going. I thought behaviors were going to be better, or I thought attendance was going to be better. So, there's a little bit of a gap from where we are to where I thought we'd be, or where I'd like us to be. And that's disappointing. And we don't, and this is the other piece. Just because we're disappointed, just because we're discouraged, because there's a gap, right? Because there's a gap in attendance where it's at and where we want it to be, or there's a gap in how students are behaving and how we want them to behave, or there's a gap in, assessments, benchmarks, test scores, all of that. There are always gaps, right? The goal is not to close the gap thinking, listen carefully. What we tend to think is, if we close the gap, if attendance were at 95%, and if kids were performing on benchmark at grade level, and if they were behaving, we would feel amazing. And the truth is, if we could wave a wand and make that all happen and control all of the things, maybe it would. But yet, there would be something else. So, and this is how I know this to be true. When I was a principal, and I've talked to so many principals about this, when their test scores are really low, let's say they're at a Title I school and they're at 40%, and they're like, oh gosh, yeah, we just want to get the kids to 50%. We want our test scores to hit 50%. And they do within a year or two, especially, with coaching, their test scores go up 10%. That's a huge jump. It's a quantum leap, right? For kids and for staff. So everyone feels amazing for about a year. And now it's like, oh, really wish the kids would be at 60%, especially our target students. Let's get them, 55. So as teachers, as humans, we have this insatiable desire, which is wired into us, for continual growth, continual evolution. So there's always going to be a gap of where we're at and where we desire to be next. But we keep thinking that, we keep chasing the end of the rainbow, thinking then I'll feel better. There's like there's an absolute place where we get our school. We get our school to, to this, we get our kids to, follow these procedures at this rate and this level. We get this many kids in school. We get this many kids on grade level. And then we're in the land of bliss forevermore. And we'll just maintain that. And it'll feel good all of the time. Unfortunately, that's not how it goes, right? We get the kids up and then we want a little more, or the kids go down and now we're super panicked. So part of the fall dip is recognizing that where we're at and where we want to be, there will always be a gap of desire. And the other piece of this is, no matter where we are in the spectrum of the year. So like right now we're in the fall, we're like, oh, I wish it was spring. But then we get to the spring, we're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait till summer, right? So, and then we're in summer and we're loving summer and having fun, but then we're ready to re-energize and come back. So we're wired that way. And if when we think that something's gone wrong or something is wrong with us, then we go down kind of the wrong path of trying to fix ourselves, or trying to close the gap, or trying to, believe that eventually one day something's going to click and everything's going to be all better. And it's this all or none thinking versus the land of and, which is, here we are right now. People are physically tired. People are a little bit emotionally spent. They're mentally taxed because they are not happy with what is, and they want it to be something else. And there's that dissonance. Okay. So one of the things that we can do is to remember that where we're at right now today, wherever your school is, it is where you wanted to be at one point. And even if you flatlined, let's say your school, let's go to the place where your school's scores have kind of flatlined for like the last 5 years. You haven't, like, the scores haven't gone up, or benchmarks have been, everything's been about the same, all around the same. And you've put in all these interventions and it's about the same. And um you tried, different interventions, you tried different, maybe a new curriculum, and everything, it's kind of the same. And it feels like we're stagnant. But the truth is, one, they're different kids every single time. So you're still putting forth that effort and getting those kids at around where you got last year's kids. So there is some growth, there is some progress. And also, keeping it at that level is actually still growth, because you are taking a new group of kids and building them up and getting them to maintain. But we're not looking at it that way. We're always looking at the gap. We're always looking, and we're making the gap mean something's gone wrong. We've gone wrong. We did something wrong. We're not doing enough. We need to fix this right away. We focus so much on the gap that that becomes our identity of what we're not doing versus what we are doing. And this might sound a little elementary, but if you think about the amount of time you spend during the school year, during even a school day, how much time are you thinking about what's working versus what's not, right? So I wanted to bring up this concept of kind of a relentless personality. A lot of my students, a lot of my clients will come to me and say, okay, I've thought about the fall dip. I've thought about what it is, and really, for the most part, people are pretty, most people are okay. Like, they have their moments, they have their days, but the majority of people actually, like, they're doing okay. I've got really good teachers on campus, but I have this one teacher, or I have this one grade level, or I have this one family, or this one parent. So you'll start to notice that when the brain wants to generalize everything, and we're like, oh, everything's gone wrong. And when actually, when we hone it down and we ask ourselves specifically to get very specific, there's kind of a sticking point. And it tends to be, it feels relentless. So, like, you're walking on eggshells because you don't want to upset that parent. Because if that's the parent, they come in guns a-blazing. They've got advocates. They've, calling lawyers, or they're getting the local newspaper involved, or they're blasting on social media. And it feels like for you, it's just like, oh, this one thing, if it's so relentless, if they would just stop. They don't seem to stop. They don't ever seem happy. They're always, they've always got something to complain about. And then you, as the leader, feel obligated to try and hold patience for both them and for you, because you're like getting impatient because they're so impatient, right? And then this energy is fueling, and it can feel like that one person's going to take you over the edge. And let's be honest, like, they are feeling like their emotions are more important than yours, right? Like, my needs right now, like a toddler. I demand your attention, your time, and I demand that I get what I want right here, right now. And if you don't give it to me, then I'm going to cry louder, and I'm going to be meaner, and I'm going to, puff up. And I'm going to, get scarier, bigger threats, right? So what happens in these cases is it starts to wear on you. And so then it's impacting you physically, mentally, and emotionally, right? So we as leaders in navigating the fall dip and people are maybe tapped out, like maybe we've got a family that's super stressed out, or you've got a teacher who's really on edge, maybe she's going through something personally, or he is, new and distracted and overwhelmed, and it just feels like everything is compounding, and you're looking at it like there's a train wreck about to happen here, and I'm going to be the one cleaning up the mess. So we need to learn the skill set of how to navigate this, because it's maddening and it's a requirement of our leadership ability. We want to cultivate this skill, because at least in my experience, those personalities aren't going anywhere. Like, you could move to another school and it would be a new type of relentless personality. Or you could go to, like move that person and then another person comes in, relentless personality. So, how do we manage them, right? It is an internal job. It requires us to look at ourselves. Why is this person so triggering for me? What comes up for me just when I see them? Your body probably goes into fight or flight, your nervous system. What's coming up for you? The only way to learn the skill is to work through it. And this is what we're not talking about in education, but it will flip the dip. We have to look inside of ourselves as the adults on campus and say, hey, I'm really triggered by this. Why? What is it about what that person did or said is triggering me? I brought this up in the first session, but this is so important. It's if I could just help people understand that anytime there's a dip in the climate at your school, it's a collective of the individual dips where somebody's triggered, somebody's upset, somebody's not feeling good about themselves, or somebody's so tired that they're, making mistakes, or they are feeling like they can't keep up because they're so fatigued. The only way to figure that out is to lean in. Like when a teacher is so physically tired, she comes to you and she just is like, I can't do this anymore. I'm physically tired. And or they're looking at you like, you need to fix this and make this better for me because I'm so tired. The simple solution is getting some sleep. And they're like, well, I can't sleep. Well, why not? I'm so busy. Yes. Yes, you are busy. A lot of people are busy. How do they sleep? How do they feel rested? Well, I just can't. Well, why not? There are people, and these relentless personalities tend to be more like this, where they want to have the problem they have. They want to own it. They want to be tired and complain about it, but they don't want to say, hey, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to go home early, go to bed, get a sitter, do whatever I need to do to just get some sleep, or take a day off if they have to and sleep in. They're not willing to say, I'm going to take responsibility for this. I'm really tired. Like dog, what did they call it? Tired to the bone, tired. I can't keep my eyes open. It's almost unsafe for me to drive. That kind of tired, like that physical fatigue, that's deep fatigue. People want you to fix it by making something easier on the outside so that they don't feel so tired, versus saying like, I'm physically tired. I think I just need to like go to bed early tonight. Maybe ask my spouse to watch the kids or to put the kids to bed so I can go to bed really early, or I go to bed when the kids go to bed. We don't give ourselves permission to solve our own problem. And relentless personalities tend to hold on to the problem and just fire off excuses. I can't go to bed because of this. I can't take a day off because of this. I can't go home early from work because of this. Let's say they're emotionally, most people are emotionally fatigued. The dip is more emotional. And that's because when you're physically tired, your thoughts kind of go down a different path. And it's focusing on all the negative and what's not working. And this kid in my class, and I have a relentless personality in my classroom. And then the teacher has a relentless personality because they're trying to solve this problem for the kid. And then you're like, okay, let's break this down. Got to figure out, in problem solving with your IEP team, or if the student is not on an IEP, pulling together a team to talk with student to figure this out. And here's the other thing. There's bandwidth. And we want everything fixed right here, right now. And when it comes to students and it comes to humans, it's not how it works. We want the problem solved quickly so that we can feel better. And what we're doing is we're externalizing our experience. We're saying, I need my kids to behave a certain way, my colleagues to behave a certain way, my principal to behave a certain way, my district, administrators to behave a certain way. And we're doing that as administrators. I need my teachers to behave a certain way, my staff. I need the parents to behave a certain way in order for me to feel good, versus taking back our personal power and saying, you know what? My goal this year is to feel good. I want to regain perspective. I want to shift my emotions. I want to feel better. I want more energy. I want to focus on the positive and think positive thoughts about myself, about others, about the possibility of education and the potential. I want an energy reboot to get me back on track. Are you guys feeling that? There's a difference between wanting the problem and wanting an external solution versus taking back ownership and saying, I'm going to figure this out for me. And I'm going to do my very best. I'm going to commit to focusing on what is working versus what isn't working, or at least 50-50. Give them equal airtime. Let your brain tell you, here's all the things that are wrong. Here's all the reasons why I'm fatigued. This is why I'm in a funk. Let it, you can brain drain that out. And also, what's going well? What am I grateful for? What would I be so sad to be without right now? Power, electricity, technology, internet access, custodian on campus, all my subs. What is going well today? At least give yourself the amount of time that you write down problems and think about those. Also think about what you're so grateful for, what's working. That one thing, if you only did that, it would flip the fall dip. If we invited people to say, okay, teachers, I get it, but we're spending 98% of our time talking about the relentless personality and 2% talking about all the other amazing kids in our class. Let's at least split it. The one personality gets 50% of our attention, but the other 50 gets 50. And we're going to talk about the funny things and talk about the great things and remember why we're here for ourselves, to have fun with kids, to engage with them, to inspire them into wanting to learn, to, collaborating and socializing. There's so much fun in schools with kids. And there's so many kids who want their teachers to also be celebrating what is working. And look at me, teacher, I'm doing the work, I'm doing a great job. But you're always over here looking at little, little person who's being relentless in their personality. So you may have to give more of your physical time and attention if that student is physically dysregulated or emotionally regulated to the point where, you have to ensure their safety and the safety of others. Yes. So that you might physically be with that child more. And in a moment of reflection, during lunch, before school, after school, driving home, yes, 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 this child, yes, yes, absolutely. And also, you know, this person did this student did that, she did this, he did that, they did this. Yay, yay, yay. Thank goodness for these kiddos. They're bringing me joy just thinking about them. We can do that. We can train our brains to do that. The motivational triad in our brain will fight us, but we have the power to override it in the sense of redirecting. Feeling like when you're teaching or you're at school and it's like, oh, it's Tuesday and it's only Tuesday morning and I'm so tired, so tired. And then the dismissal comes and all of a sudden you're like packing up, getting ready to go, and you have a burst of energy. Or you're like, oh, I'm meeting a girlfriend for dinner tonight. We can flip like that. Our energy can flip, our mood, our emotional state, right? So there's something called the motivational triad in our brain. It seeks pleasure, avoids pain, and wants things to be as easy as possible, right? Kids want this. They want to seek pleasure. They want to avoid pain and embarrassment and shame and guilt and all the bad feels. And they want things to be as easy as possible when it comes to learning and coming to school. Teachers want the same thing. They want things as easy as possible. They want to avoid as much pain as possible. And they want things to be as easy as possible. We want that. We want things to be avoid, seek out pleasure, avoid pain, make things as easy as possible. So what we want to do when our brain's like, this isn't easy, this is not fun, this is not exciting, this is not interesting, and it's looking at, no, this isn't fun, this is not pleasurable, this is painful, this is not easy, I don't like this, I don't want to do this. When we're in that, what we have to do is say, okay, well, what parts are good? What is going well? Oh yeah, over here, right? It doesn't take much to get the brain redirected. What do you're going out with a girlfriend tonight for dinner? Great. Think about that. Let's think about that IEP last week that, went really well. Or that you got into teacher observations last week and you even got some written up, completed, right? We've got to collect evidence of what's working. So what gets in the way of us doing this? Number one is just a lack of awareness. We're not having these conversations as educators. We're so busy focusing on solving problems that we're only in the energy of what isn't working and disempowerment. No wonder everybody's in a fall dip when it's like, this isn't working and that's not working and this kid that and this teacher that and this parents this and the special ed director said this and that's not working and we're just like, nah, nah, nah. Of course we're in a fall dip. We dug the dip. We dipped out, right? So we tuned out lack of awareness and a lack of tools. We're simply just not having these conversations in education. And when I started this program, 9 years ago, people wanted tangibles, how to do my time, how to manage my time, how to have a hard conversation. So I created programs that were the how, skills of leaders, how to communicate, how to build relationships, right? Those were all the pillars. And then I was like, but there's more to leadership than just these, how to's with our time and the people and, figuring out how to, do budgets and all of that tangible stuff. That's all skill set that's very important. And I have, material on that, but there was something missing. And it was this emotional regulation piece. Having conversations around emotion. We talk about emotional regulation when it comes to kids. We want kids to be able to regulate emotionally. But the pain points that I'm hearing from principals, it might be student behavior, but every time within the context of student behavior, the other pain points are the adults and the inability for the adults to regulate. for the adults to have, to be able to hold space. Like, I know this kiddo is having a relentless, personality, exhibiting relentless behaviors right now. And can I be patient enough? Can I work with it? Can I stick with it long enough? Do I have grit? Do I have tenacity? Do I have conviction? Do I have belief that we can work through this for as long as it takes? And I'm not talking like you might be in a situation where you need to offer FAPE and go through the steps, of course. But in this point in the year, when you're just getting to know your kids, especially if they're new to you or they're new to your school and they don't have a 504, or they don't have any kind of, any kind of plan in place that is supporting their needs, and you're trying to figure that out, there is space and time required for that. And do we have the emotional bandwidth, the mental bandwidth to hold space for that? So number one is awareness. Number two is just having the tools and having these conversations. Number three is the belief blocks. We, back to the people who I don't like, there's all these excuses. Thinking you can't take time to eat, can't take time for rest, can't take an emotional, 10-minute walk, can't to reboot yourself, can't take a mental health day, can't do this, can't. We block ourselves from giving ourselves the very thing that we need. You might need a day off. I have a client today. She's taking one of the first days off that she's ever taken. This is her third year working with me. She's like, I feel so proud of myself. I'm taking a day off. And my superintendent, get this, my superintendent even called a meeting. Like, I had put my request in for a leave for a day. And that was a couple weeks ago. It got approved directly by the superintendent. And then the superintendent didn't check who would be out and scheduled an all hands meeting for the administrators on that day. And she was going to stay. And then she thought, no, I'm going to honor myself. It took work for her to be able, one, to submit that. Number two, to hold space. And even though the superintendent called a last minute meeting, she was able to say, I'm going to honor my decision to go and get some rest and to have a me day and to take some time off. And then, of course, the superintendent was like, yeah, I forgot. You're right. I did approve that. Okay. Get the notes from one of your friends, colleagues, that kind of thing. But it's us blocking ourselves almost all of the time. Almost all the time. I understand some of you are like, my superintendent won't let us take a day off. That, if that's you're going to get fired because of that, if the risk is too great to take your day off, we'd have to work and find a way to get you the rest that you need. But we do limit ourselves. And it's so subtle. I do it too. We all have mental limitations. We all have, I call them belief blocks, where it's it just blocks you. It's oh, I really want to feel better. But that's the excuse, right? It's the obstacle that it comes down as a block. Or there's a block mentally, I can't figure out how to make this work. Block, right? So thinking that we can't create boundaries, all kinds of blocks around what I should do, what I shouldn't do, who I should be, who I shouldn't be, what I should say, what I shouldn't say, what I should talk about, what I shouldn't talk about, like emotions, what we think about situations, what we think other people should do, shouldn't do, all of that shoulda, coulda, wouldas kind of stuff. Blocks, limiting language, limiting thinking, limiting our ability to expand our capacity for emotion, right? And then I think the big hammer that comes down is emotional resistance. We don't want to feel a negative emotion. When we're in the fall, here's what's so interesting about the fall dip. I'm just thinking about this as I'm speaking. The fall dip is this collective of people who are kind of feeling a little blah, right? But the blah is like a blanket. It's an overlay covering up all of the real emotions they don't want to feel. So we're kind of blah, we're just oh, I'm just so frustrated with this student. But what's underneath the surface is I'm feeling blah because I'm physically tired. Or I'm feeling blah because I'm actually really disappointed that my my grade level or my department, it's just like there's conflict on the team, and that's really uncomfortable. Every time we go to a planning session, PLC meetings, grade level meetings, however you guys have it set up, there's just this tension, and I really don't like conflict. And so I just, every time I come to work, I feel blah. But really, what's going on is just like I'm disappointed, or I'm a little uncomfortable, I'm nervous. Like I don't like conflict and it makes me very nervous. So we have some emotional resistance, but we don't want to lean into feeling disappointed. And we certainly don't want to lean into like the courage required to speak up and say, I'm feeling some tension. Is anybody else feeling it? And how do we want to work around this? Because I really want to love coming. I want you guys to love coming. And if there's something I can do to contribute in a way that makes this more fun, or it makes it easier, better, faster, more comprehensive, let's talk about it. Let's like put it on the table and talk. That kind of thing. There's a lot of resistance around that because it's a layer of vulnerability. When a teacher's like, I am so frustrated with this kid, I've tried everything. What they're saying is, I'm afraid, I'm resistant to feeling incompetent. I'm resistant to having people know and being exposed that I've got a student in my class who's exhibiting behaviors that I have no idea how to handle. And I'm asked, I have to ask for help, which is a layer of vulnerability. And so and then we get kind of, it's called jade, where we justify, argue, defend, and explain. We get very defensive about, well, you figure it out then. I can't figure it out. But the reason we get this defensiveness coming up is because we feel embarrassed or we feel ashamed that we don't know how to connect with this student and how to make it work for them in the classroom, and to make it work for us and for the students and for all. I don't know how to do that. I wasn't trained for this, or I never come across this before. And versus owning that and saying it and naming it. There's one thing that can flip the dip really fast: naming how we're feeling. It's like, why are we feeling blah? What's coming up? Well, this situation. Oh, yeah. How are you feeling about that? Well, I'm feeling this, or I'm feeling that. Emotional resistance to emotions. We resist naming them. We resist acknowledging them. We resist validating it and feeling it, but also taking ownership for it. Because we might be able to say, you know what, I've had it. I'm so frustrated. I'm so discouraged. I'm defeated. I don't know what to do with this kid. Deal with it. Somebody else just figure it out. What we're also saying is, I'm at max capacity and I don't have the bandwidth, nor do I desire to try and to expand my bandwidth to figure this out, to become more competent. And that, what's so crazy about that is, I feel incompetent right now, but I'm embarrassed to feel incompetent. So there's the feeling on the feeling. And then, or the feeling about the feeling. Like, I feel incompetent, but I don't want to feel incompetent. That would be really embarrassing if people knew I felt incompetent. So I'm going to mask it and I'm going to hide it. And I'm going to abdicate responsibility to my, district team. And I don't know how to handle it as a principal, and my teachers don't know how to handle it. So we're going to abdicate that. And versus saying, hey, we are not sure how to deal with this. We need all hands on deck. We need support, your insight, wisdom. And they might not know either. But instead of saying that, we all try to pass the hot potato around. So flipping the dip would just be like saying, this must be really frustrating. This must be really disappointing. It must be really, hard to want to know what to do and not quite sure, because that's how I'm feeling right now. How are you feeling? I'm feeling like I'm not sure what to do here. I'm feeling a little unsure of myself, a little at a loss. But let's try together. Let's figure this out. Even if parents, are agitated and not agreeing with us, internally at this school, we're going to work together, knowing that no one person ever knows all the things. No one person can figure every behavior out. And some behaviors, they're so hard because they're not in FAPE. They're not in appropriate placement. And it takes us time to collect that data to be able to offer the placement of FAPE. So back just really quickly, there's that awareness piece and having the tools, belief blocks that come down, and then the emotional resistance. And the blocks come down to protect us from emotional exposure. Okay. So there is a tool that can help you develop awareness. I call it the steer cycle. You may have seen it in other forms. I learned it through my studies at the life coach school when I became certified as a life coach through the life coach school. And my coach, master coach, calls it the model. I have adapted it to the steer cycle because I like it because you can steer it, you can navigate it, and I've added some components to it that I think are user friendly for educators. So the steer cycle is basically what I've been talking about. A situation occurs, which triggers thoughts, right? You have the initial incident, which you kind of go into shock, and then your brain starts processing thoughts at rapid fire as you're trying to process and figure out what's going on. And you have emotions that are being, stimulated and triggered. And then you have the feelings about the feelings, right? But in that emotional state, that is where when our emotions come up, they are an indicator. It's the body speaking to the mind, like, hey, we need to get in sync here. Something's off. Whoop, it comes up. What's coming up for you? What are you thinking about? Or how are you feeling? Yes, here's how I'm feeling. What are you thinking about that? Well, I'm thinking about your feelings. This is, and we have to get in alignment internally. That's where we push pause just for a second before we determine our approach, which is the A in steer. It's STEAR. Excuse me. The S stands for situation. The T stands for thought. The E stands for emotion. The A stands for approach. And the R stands for results. So you're having all the thoughts, something's going on, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And brain is processing, interpreting, what does this mean? What does it mean about me, the student, the staff member, the family, whatever is coming up? Emotions are going to flare. And there's where we pause. Like, whoa, here's what I'm feeling. Body's talking to the brain. Hey, brain, what's going on? Well, I'm thinking this. I'm interpreting this way, and this is how I feel. Yes, this is how I'm feeling. It's very, intense in my body. This is how I'm feeling. What are you, and back and forth. And like, how do we want to handle this? Let's take a breath. Let's settle ourselves for a moment. And let's look at these thoughts for a second. Is it true that they're saying I'm lying? Is that true? Maybe they said they're lying. What do they mean by that? What could they mean? Let's look at all the ways to interpret this and give our brain some alternatives so we don't just react emotionally to the very first thing that happens or the very first idea that our brain comes up with. It's not always the top-notch thought, right? Like when you get an email and you want to fire off a response, which that's a reaction. You're like, I'm going to respond to this. No, you're going to react to it. Responding is deciding with intention the approach you want to take once you've allowed that initial 90 seconds of the body's reaction, that initial flare up, which is very visceral. Then you can get into your thought-provoking emotions and monitor any, feelings about the feelings before you make that intentional decision. Okay. So the steer cycle is just an awareness tool. What happened? What are my thoughts about it? How am I feeling right now? Push pause. How do I want to approach this? If I act in anger right now, here's what I'm going to say and here's how I'm going to say it. But what is the result of that? Do I want that result? Yes or no? And if I could write this out and create the approach that I want with intention, then what? That's the steer cycle. And for more information on that and for diving in deep with the steer cycle, that's an EPC, okay? Another tool you can use, very simple, it's called the brain drain, right? Thinking that I can't do this or I can do that, looking at all those limitations and just what are the limitations? What is in my way? What are the obstacles, the roadblocks? What are, what do I think is going to happen? What are the, potential consequences? Write it all down. I call it a brain drain. You look at the obstacles. What is your mind thinking? What is it excuse me, what is it offering you, and discern for ourselves. Like our brain offers us some crazy ideas, some crazy thoughts. That's not a problem. It's just firing off. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's over here. Maybe it means I'm not worthy. Maybe it means I'm not good enough. Oh, maybe it means that they are the problem. Maybe they're the ones, right? It goes into like something's wrong with us, then it bounces over to something's wrong with them or something's wrong with them. Or, oh, wait, maybe something's wrong with us. Well, maybe there's nothing wrong at all. Or maybe there's a 50-50 ownership here. Let's look at that before we react, okay? The brain drain is just a way to get into those individual thoughts that are preventing you, blocking you. And you know what they're doing? When those blocks come down, they're protecting you. There's a fear coming up. You know, if this is true, then, ooh, I might be exposed. Ooh, I might get in trouble. Ooh, somebody might be upset at me. Ooh, I might, make somebody mad. So we're building blocks around us, and we want to be able to like, nope, it's safe. It's okay. Let's work through this. It doesn't have to be scary, but it might take us a little time to work through it. Okay. Another tool that you can take with you, and this is the doozy one. Are you ready for it? It's called, I just created it, the emotional resistance tool. So I talked about that emotional resistance that comes up. I don't want to feel disappointed, so I'm going to just be blah. Or I don't want to be embarrassed, so I'm going to pretend to be frustrated. Or I'm going to just show the part of me that's just annoyed. But really, I'm feeling incompetent and embarrassed. So this, to me, when I created this, I actually created this because of something very personal that I was going through, something extremely painful in my personal life where I could no longer avoid feeling the emotion. It was just so intense. It was all encompassing in my life. It was it was a rock bottom moment in my life where there was no looking away. There was no avoiding. There was no binging on Netflix to take the pain away. It was unavoidable. And I realized I was working with a coach, I was working with a therapist, and I was leaning into all of the ugly feelings that came up at, at school and at home, professionally, personally. And so I came up with this process for myself. And I observed myself. What am I doing right now? And how am I was observing what my body was doing, what my mind was doing, what my heart was feeling, and what my soul wanted. And I was watching this all, and I started documenting it and created this protocol. It's a 5-step protocol. First one is just identify the emotion, see if you can name it. What am I feeling? Find a label if you can. Mad, sad, glad, and then there's the spectrum of all those feelings. What I just did was I would Google like lists of emotions, like all the variations of mad, all the variations of sad, all the variations of hopeful, all the variations of despair. When I was trying to get very specific or I would look in a thesaurus. So what am I feeling? But you can just jot it down. It doesn't have to be initially like mad, sad, glad, that kind of a thing. And why am I feeling it? Why am I feeling this way? And that's the brain drain. Well, it's this and this and then this and then that. It's the story of the emotion. This is why I feel this way. There is a story attached to the emotion. And then you allow it to come in. I used to say, hey, come on in. Let's have a cup of coffee together. Anger or grief or pain or embarrassment or shame. Come on in. Let's talk. And I would let the emotion describe yourself. Tell me what's coming up for you. Tell me all the things. How is it feeling? Where are you in my body? How does it feel? Does it have a shape? Does it have a color? Does it have a size? And then I would like really work with it and then let it be there. I would just sit with it. This is what it feels like. Oh, it's in my chest, or oh, now I feel it up in my neck, and oh, my head's pounding and my stomach's churning and I'm crying, or I'm just feeling numb. I'm just sitting here, like letting it ravage through my body, just this vibration of intensity. And it would come in waves. And that's the processing of it. No one likes doing this. We all fear feeling these feelings. It's something that I tend to do in private, like, but the truth of it was this: I'm no longer afraid to feel it, because as scary as I always think it's going to be, it ends up that I just feel a sense of restlessness, tightness, discomfort, kind of the achiness in the body, the tightness in the chest. But when you describe an emotional experience as though you were at a doctor, and it's like, well, I feel it in my stomach and I feel it in my chest. It feels like I'm going to die right now. My chest hurts so bad. I'm so heartbroken. I'm so angry, or I'm so depressed, or I'm so fed up, frustrated, like you're just getting it all out and you're feeling it in your body. It comes in waves, but what you'll notice is that's all that ever happens. You might cry, you might, scream, you might punch a pillow, you might squirm about, and then you feel really tired afterwards because it was work to get it through. So if you're in the fall dip and it's just blah, but it's because there's something underneath the surface that's been stuffed down and it's percolating down there and it's not being allowed a voice or acknowledgement or any kind of validation, in your own time, in the evening, on a weekend, on a day off, go through this process. Name it, invite it in, let it describe what's happening, let yourself feel it, ask it. What can I learn? Where can I grow? And the reason we do this, the reason we lean into the negative emotion, is it cleanses and clears. It goes away. It just wants to be acknowledged and validated. So flip the fall dip is about us going first. So trying this, trying on these tools, brain draining. What's coming up for me? Why is there such tension? Are we looking at all the external reasons why we don't feel good? Are we thinking that that has to be fixed in order for us to come into work happy? Does this one relentless behavior need to be, extinguished before we can be happy? Or are we just going to go on to the next thing that makes us unhappy? At what point? Where's the line in the sand? Where is the standard where we finally just say, you know what? There's always something to be unhappy about. There's always something to be in the dip about, but there's always also something to get us out of it. There's always a reason to be happy too. We have to take ownership of that. It's really easy to say like, oh, it's just the year and the kids and there's so much more going on this year and I'm so busy and it's so hard. Yes, we can we can spiral out and like dip out of happiness at any time. It's very accessible and available to us. But my invitation is for you to take back your empowerment and to dip back in. You can also equally choose to look for things that make you happy, that are fun, that are delightful. And allow this 50-50 experience. Man, there's some hard days and I dipped. I let myself be in there. I felt it. I went home, put on my sweats, cried it out, watched some Netflix, ate some popcorn, and went to bed at 8 o'clock. When we do this, we open up the invitation and we open space in our bodies and in our minds and our hearts to feel good. Because this human experience is meant for us to feel good. You weren't born, you were a miracle. It's an absolute miracle that you were here on the planet, you chose education, and you're here right now. An aspiring leader, a new leader, a veteran leader, a district leader, site leader, postgraduate leader, any kind of leader. It's just a miracle that we're here and that we've been given the gift of this human experience. And yet we don't honor the miracle. We focus on how hard the human experience is. And that's what the dip is. We just slipped out of alignment. We forgot that there's some good things going on. We forgot that we can be happy. We forgot that happiness, joy, successes, they're all equally available to us. The brain wants to default to that motivational triad. It wants it to be right, look right, feel right. I want you to consider the concept of luxury. Most people, when they say the word luxury, they think of like financial wealth, financial, luxury that is acquired through financial means. I think about the luxury of being an educator, the luxury of being a person who impacts students' lives, the trajectory of their future, the luxury of having internet access, the luxury of technology, not just the pain points of technology, but the luxury of it. The fact that you and I can be sitting here from anywhere in the world having this conversation, a luxury. When you're a school leader and you have a few moments to grab a coffee or a tea in the morning and to get yourself ready for the day, 5 minutes of luxury. It's a luxury to have office staff, maintenance staff, support staff, paraprofessionals, teachers, students, families. What would our lives be without them? What would school look like without one of those puzzle pieces? So as we wrap up tonight, taking these tools with us, the brain drain, the steer cycle, and the emotional processing protocol, you can apply those today and then come back tomorrow and we're going to talk about feel-good goals and what would feel good for you. Are we ready to flip the dip? Do we want to drop the painful stories of what's not working, why it's not working, all of the reasons why it's not working, all of the roadblocks? Are we open to considering detaching from that story a little bit and bringing in some feel-goodness to our lives, to our schools, turning that campus back up, amplifying feeling good, inviting our teachers to do it too? What do you say? Ready? Our goal as leaders is not to create followers. Our goal as leaders is to empower those we lead and to empower them to lead their own life, to take ownership and responsibility for their emotional state, to remind them that it's equally available to focus on what's working, to focus on what feels good, what's going well. And if something doesn't feel good, what would make it feel better? That's within our reach. We cannot change the child's behavior in 1 day, 1 week, 1 month necessarily. But what can we do? What can we do in our classroom? What can we do with our teachers? What can we do to make a staff meeting a little bit less boring and a little more fun? How can we apply these tools in a way that's a little more lighthearted? And we can laugh at some of our thoughts. We can laugh as we observe ourselves. Whoa, where'd that emotion come from? Why did I get so worked up about that? What's coming up for me? It doesn't have to be this super heavy thing. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it requires that level of validation and acknowledgement. And we don't want to get sucked into that story so deeply that we become held hostage to it. So let's work on focusing on the 50%. That's working. And decide, no, my new standard is going to be when I dip, I create awareness. The dip is the awareness. It's like the tool that says, hello, we're dipping below where we want to be. Let's find out why. Let's do a brain drain. Let's look at a steer cycle. Let's process some emotions here and clear some space so we can get back to baseline, which is empowerment. Have a beautiful night. It has been an honor to be with you here today, and I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Take excellent care of yourselves. Talk soon. Bye.